You're a one-person team that's been able to almost reach 100,000 ARR, and you've done it all by yourself.
You see a lot of content creators making claims that I just built this thing in 3 hours, 4 hours, or maybe with vibe coding. So it's not that. It's actually extremely hard, getting these things right and scaling.
When a founder is hiring for that content writer, would you look for an engineer? Would you look for a literature guy?
Just open Google and Google anything related to tax. And most probably in top 5 results, you'll get this India tax startup. They get 95% of their leads from search engines, search only. Who they hired to write those articles? Accountants, company secretaries, tax specialists. Because you can't hire a literature writer to write about tax articles, right? People tend to start their SEO or content journey from day 1. But I think it should start at least from day -6. Okay, that means at least 2 months before
I've heard
they
that
even
one.
launch the product. Getting backlinks is also an art. But also I would say you can rank without backlinks, but you have to make sure all the other areas are optimized for the maximum.
Welcome to Edbound with Kinner. Sai. It's such an honor, such a pleasure talking to you. We've known each other for such a long time, and we're getting a chance to jam on how things are going in terms of your GTM for this amazing platform that you are building, Superblog.ai, right? That's the platform. So I would love to hear from you an introduction to how you introduce your platform and your personal brand to people.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Kinner, for inviting me to this podcast. And it's been a pleasure seeing you grow, because we are from alumni, and it's kind of like a front row seat to watch you grow the company. And I checked your clientele. It's amazing. Great job on that. And thanks for the invite. So coming to Superblog, think of Superblog like WordPress with superpowers that has beautiful UI UX like Medium, that's designed end to end to optimize your conversions leads. That's what Superblog is. Focus on writing content instead of setup, maintenance, optimizations, and security.
So is it right to say that you're a blogging platform and you replace Medium for a white labeled experience instead of being on a third party platform? Is that
exactly?
Yeah, wonderful. But there are some super amazing things that you've been able to achieve. And I think these are iconic. I've spoken to so many people in the past few years around their GTM strategies, the way they build businesses. And you are, I think, one of the only ones where I could say that you're a single man army. You're a one-person team that's been able to almost reach 100,000 ARR, and you've done it all by yourself. So let's talk a little bit more about that and let people digest that. It's a dream, right? People have been talking about it since AI became a thing, that this is going to happen. So I want to hear more about, how and where are we on this journey? Are you still a single person team? Are you the only person in the company? Right?
Okay. So I'm the solo founder. Yes. And I'm the only person on the team, but I'll be completely honest here, what happened and what's the thought process here for Superblog and the pre-context as well, how I got into this. I do everything in Superblog, right from development to customer support. But in the initial stages, I hired freelancers to write content on the blog. Okay. So I was supervising everything, but unfortunately that experiment didn't go well, So I took up even writing blog posts upon myself, because I didn't see any, because I spent a lot premium on the content, but I didn't get any return. So I was like, fine, I'll do it by myself. And since then it's been just me. And most recently I got an agency or very small startup to write blog posts. So apart from that, yes, it's just me. And so since I'm close to 100K ARR, I thought, fine, I'll hire these people, as a freelancers, to write the content. That's the thought process for now.
Wow. Mind-blowing, man. I want to break down the playbook of how do you do this. This is something that almost every creator out there, every young entrepreneur, his dream. You're living the dream. And I believe you just moved to Edinburgh. Beautiful. I mean, I have close memories of Newcastle upon Tyne, my travel to Edinburgh, because, UK is close to heart. I studied there.
Lovely.
I think you're living the dream, man. Let's open the playbook to this, right? Let's understand how does this work. So when you started, a company needs certain things, and you started with all those things in one box that is your brain, and you had to code, you had to figure out a GTM, you had to design, you had to write content. I believe because it was a new setup, I mean, accounts and all of that, we usually outsource anyways, even in decently, grown startups. So am I right? Am I missing any piece? You kind of handled all of that in the beginning yourself. So explain that to us. How long did you take to build the product? Or were you doing it like an MVP, just came out in the market? I mean, how was the initial journey like?
Sure. See, I won't lie on one aspect that, like, you see a lot of content creators making claims that, I just built this thing, like in 3 hours, 4 hours, or maybe with the vibe coding, the trend. So it's not that. It's actually extremely hard, like getting these things right and scaling. But in my case, what happened was I had like super good experience previously being a solo developer, I would say. At that point of time, it was in 2010 and 11. I didn't even know the term solo founder, indie hacker, all these things. Like I just love to build things. And the playbook I followed was like basically build for something that you want, that you would love to use the product for yourself, and do the validation in different ways, depending on the framework that you choose. For example, see, if I want to build $1 billion business, then probably this is not the right framework, right? Whether you want to be a indie hacker who travels the world and do a 100K ARR business, or do you want to be a 5% team that does 1 million ARR, probably a B2B SaaS? The framework changes depending on these things. So don't take whatever I say as the unique, like the framework that can be applied to everywhere. But coming to myself, initially I started with B2C apps. With B2C apps, the framework is kind of very simple, at least back in 2010 and 11, right? So you see what's in demand through Google Trends and Google Keyword Explorer. You can literally know what people are demanding for. Okay. And you can know what's the exact search volumes, I mean, approximation data from Google search or Ahrefs. So you clearly
SEMrush, yeah.
know SEMrush, right? You clearly know there's a demand for your product even before you did any customer interviews or in
So that's
person
before you
research.
started coding, right? I mean,
Yes,
you're saying that even before you go and think
yes,
about launching a product or even building a product, you
yeah.
first go and figure out demand. If anyone in the world wants what you're selling.
Exactly. Right. So I think that's the easiest way, like, not to fall into this loops where we spend years and years, trying to build a PMF and then blowing up a lot of energy, money, capital, on that. So that's how I pick. And then, like, basically find your problem statement, validate the demand, and then you start building it. And my forte is SEO and ASO, App Store optimization. Put content for that, optimize it, and make sure the funnel covers the search, and then you get your users. So I built multiple apps with the same framework and hit tens of millions of users cumulatively, and was on top 3 and top 8 on Google Play Store as well. And so I kind of have a understanding of, like, how you do things solo and build and scale basically. And that helped a lot for me in building Superblog and growing Superblog single-handedly. So to be completely fair, that's what went into the building.
No, fantastic. So I understand that you knew a lot about SEO, but when you're building Superblog, it's an engine. It's kind of a DIY platform that lets people build their own blogs, white label. How did you code the entire platform? Was that only you? How long did it take? Because those are some important questions people would think.
Okay. It's an interesting question. See, you are even more aware of the CMS and blogging platforms, right? Generally, what happens when you want a high performing blog, which is like, prime for content marketing? I'm not talking about blogs like personal blogs or just for the sake of writing content, like you just have a blog, not that. I'm just talking about the real pain point in having a highly optimized blog for, especially for big companies, like, who get a lot of leads and generate millions of dollars of revenue. You generally, like, what happens, you take a WordPress installation, install it on server like AWS, DigitalOcean, whatever it is. And then, you optimize the theme, optimize the layout, optimize the speed, optimize the server. And once you start getting more and more traffic, you put more and more content. You again need to optimize your DB server, and then make sure, this WordPress installation is prime to not lose that core metrics, so that again, your SEO doesn't take a hit. I have been doing the same like anybody else for like quite some time, from 2010. So when I started building my own products, I repeat this process over and over, and I was paying like too much for a VPS, just to, because I was so lazy to get into optimization. I was just doing the vertical scaling. simply just paying more to get more compute so that, I can offload this metrics optimization. So in 2018, I built an internal framework for myself. It's called Jamstack architecture. Sorry, I'm going a bit technical in
No, no,
this.
please go ahead.
Okay. So it's called Jamstack architecture, which can scale infinitely because there is no server and there is no server and DB component because we pre-built the entire UI and then place it on CDNs. So I loved that, and I got amazing results for that. So I just wrote an article on medium.com in 2018, 2019 Jan 1st, something like that, I think. So I just
You
published
call
that.
it headless. I mean, is that something similar to what we call as a headless deployment?
Not exactly, but headless is a paradigm, that you use for building this stack. Okay. So the right term I could say is Jamstack,
Okay.
Jamstack design, basically, paradigm. So now what happened is once I put it on medium.com, it kind of went mini viral and people loved the way I built that. Essentially zero cost, blazing fast, scoring 90 plus in all of Google Lighthouse audits.
Yeah.
And the beautiful part is whether you have like one visitor or 1 million visitors, it doesn't matter. There is no server compute, there's no DB. So there are no bottlenecks.
So there's only CDN cost, right? I mean,
That's it.
based on where the person comes from.
Yeah. And you put a Cloudflare on top of that, zero cost. Right. So
Okay.
they have unlimited bandwidth for free. So this article became kind of mini viral. And then I built my first medium kind of Gatsby JS starter. That's what they call, like you can clone the repo and then you can deploy it anywhere. Your blog will look like Medium. That's what I built. And people started using that. And so I just left it like that in the open. And later in 2020, after COVID, I was playing with few ideas like what to build and all that. And I decided, oh, this is a very well validated concept by myself and by the public. And you have search volume anyways, like people are looking for WordPress blog alternatives and Medium alternatives for businesses. That's what I did. Like, so I took the time to build a complete SaaS platform with this architecture. And I think it took me 2 months to build and launch the first MVP. It's an MVP. No,
When was the first MVP launched? What was the exact date?
December 25th, 2020.
Okay, that's not too long ago, man. It's been fantastic. I mean, people don't give enough respect to patient, developments, and
Thank you.
when you do something like this, stick to it is just remarkable. So
Yeah.
I love what I've heard so far. There are so many directions that I want to go in, but like I said, I understand your playbook and you spoke about it. My take on this is that you had such a powerful insight. Your mini viral article was loaded with insights because what you just spoke about makes so much sense, right? I mean, if you could take away everything and make the blog so light, I know that people who spend on ads to drive traffic to all search engines indexing you, and I believe GEO now, where people are saying GPT engine
Exactly.
optimization, everybody is going to love faster loading pages, right? So it stays. When you were building that, you had the product, and I just want to understand from a GTM perspective. Were you eating your own dog food and SEO was your primary GTM strategy, or has there been anything else as well?
Yeah. So this is a very, I would say, I won at but what cost kind of question. Superblog was using Superblog. Superblog is using Superblog, for SEO and blog and content. The thing is, initially, I just thought I'll use the same B2C playbook, I will have the best content and, outrank keywords and just target those, alternative keywords and, like people who are looking for that and just convert them into customers. But
Let
the
me
problem
guess.
was,
B2B guys don't convert unless they talk to you, right? Is that what you got stuck in as well?
yeah, that's 100% correct. Instead of, so I knew that, like B2B doesn't work like that. You need at
No,
least
but what geographies? The question here is what part of the world were you targeting?
I was only targeting US and India.
So this is a very brilliant insight, and this is a learning for me as well, because I would think any product less than, let's say, a $250 mark could sell in the US without you needing to demo it in person. If you have video demos and stuff and people love it, I think they'll swipe their card. So in India, impossible. Even for a $50 product, you'll have to do a demo. And for people listening to us right now from any other part of the world, I mean, they would know, they should get this lesson that you could make this happen in any other part in the world. Like there are some geographies that behave like the Indian subcontinent, but it's impossible in India to do that, right? So what's your learning there?
Yeah. So exactly like what you just mentioned, right? The same. On top of that, there is another new insight that I learned. See, discovery and then conversion into user, first of all, even before customer, right? That happens very seamlessly in B2C. But in B2B, at least you need to have 5 different touch points, for them to become your user and then customer. In-person demos and, talking to the sales prospect is one efficient way, but it's not, I would say, the best for a one-person team, right? Because whatever time I'm not spending on the product, I'm losing away, in features or vision or providing more value. So instead of that, I found another approach, how can I counter that without talking to them? That's actually worked fantastically for Superblog.
In India and in the US, or only in a particular geography?
Both geographies.
Wow, I want to hear this. So what did you do?
Right. So I started thinking, because because I was able to clearly see the traffic onto the landing page and then drop offs in different pages after that. Okay. There was no conversions. I was trying to understand myself. See, if I'm a developer or a marketer, right? If I'm trying to find a new tool, what would go into my head before I make that decision, like to purchase? So I thought, first of all, Superblog is an all-in product. That's what I like to call, right? Because you're essentially handing over your content, your Google search authority, and then your entire URL indexing and all those things to Superblog. It's not like other B2B SaaS tools where you can actually, for the context, say, for example, you take an AI writer. Today, you're using a tool, you are creating content with prompts. Tomorrow, if you find another tool, you can, without disrupting your business, you can switch to another provider. But for Superblog or landing pages or Nourish for that context, right? They can't immediately switch over because there are switching costs. And the barrier to entry is high, but the barrier to leave is also high. So that actually creates even more confusion in the buyers' heads, like how can they go about that? So my thought process for that is I would look for any social media chatter that's about the product, right? Are other people using this product? Then are there constant feature updates for the product? I don't want to use an abandoned product, right? So I need to know whether there are constant updates. I need to know whether the founder is genuine, I need to see the face, that's one of the biggest learnings in B2B is that people need to see the face behind the product. And essentially the trust barrier, right? Like whether this platform that I choose for the next 3 to 4 years will be there in the market after a year, or can I trust this product to hand over my sales vertical, lead generation vertical? So essentially, all these things came down to one statement: trust barrier. I need to break the trust barrier for my potential customers. So for that, I choose something called built in public because I was looking at other products like Buffer and Simple Analytics. I used to follow those founders. So I was like, well, this is brilliant. I can actually start talking everything about the product, including tech, customers, revenue, feature products, and pipeline, everything, right? So that actually that worked, and that created a good lead gen for me without actually aiming for lead gen. So I would say now if I look back, right, I mean, in these 4 years, 3 months, my whole thing is, I mean, with the new AI tools coming up and all that, whatever we did, social media and brand value, it's going to be a huge moat coming.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this is brilliant. So now I'm forming a picture of your GTM in my head. When you talk about building trust with content, where were you posting content? Was it LinkedIn, YouTube? Where did you see the maximum result, if I may ask you?
Yeah, so my ICP basically is either ICP and decision makers, essentially, right?
Yeah, I understand. Sure.
Right? The founders or head of marketing or marketeers.
And what size of the companies you go after? Like, what are you? Do you have target revenue markers? You have headcount markers. How do you decide on the ICP?
So for Superblog, it's a kind of a challenging problem for me to fixate on one thing because ideally the customer who would be willing to shell out $1,000 for a product, per year. They would already have certain kind of footprint. Okay, I can't go for a startup who just launched and ask them for like minimum $1,000 commitment per year. Like they are, but the problem is already this bucket of founders would have already had their content engine set up. So it's very difficult for them to to move to a new platform. At the same time, if I go to somebody who is starting from zero, they're the exact right people, to be my customers, because they're starting from scratch and it's easy for them to choose a new platform, but they don't have the money. So I had to find a balance between those both, I would say. And my understanding is majority of them hang out on LinkedIn and Twitter. So I stuck to these two platforms.
LinkedIn and Twitter, mostly text based. So you're comfortable writing good content.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you got a good trust factor built in there and you were sort of building in public. Were you getting leads from these platforms? Were people
Yes.
sending you inquiries? So what is the follower count if you're getting leads?
Okay, see, now I have like 16,000 followers on LinkedIn and 11,000 followers on Twitter. But when I started this, I didn't even have like 250 followers. So LinkedIn, essentially, I started from scratch. So yeah, it was that.
Okay, fantastic. So what happens is that if a lead connects with you on LinkedIn, they've built a certain level of trust because they've heard your voice, they've seen your content, they've understood what you're doing, and there's kind of a familiarity there that they kind of understand. What happens to people who find you through keywords? Now, if I'm imagining the funnel, there are two components of the funnel. Obviously, there's one funnel where top of the funnel and mid funnel, everything's on LinkedIn. You possibly get the lead handed over at a mid funnel or a bottom funnel kind of a level, and then you kind of take them through a conversion cycle, and they could just sign up, or a trial is there. I assume they go and convert themselves, and then you're using a bit of PLG there. Some kind of content that helps you convert. So I understand this funnel, but now let's look at your core capability funnel of Superblog, which is, let's say, your castle. You talk about SEO. What happens to people who fall into those funnels? Because that could be substantial based on your keyword capture, right? I mean, and the TAM is super large there.
Yeah. See, right now I optimize the whole product in terms of usability and support and everything towards self-serve. Okay. As a result, now I have some customers from Australia, some flower bouquet delivery service. I don't even know. I never spoke to them. So they just Googled, they signed up, and they've been my customers for quite some time now, around close to 2 years, I think. Zero contact. At the same time, same thing, like from obscure places, like people find Superblog and they just start using it. Completely zero contact, and that's how I would love for the product to grow also. And as a matter of fact, as I told earlier in the podcast, I'm doubling down now on content, like by hiring other people, to write more content. But at the same time, I'll see how that goes and finalize more strategy.
So if we had to talk about a funnel conversion rate and data metric, are you measuring things like that? If a SEO funnel works, top of the funnel, how many page visits are happening on a daily basis, and how many kind of go into a bottom funnel, how many sign up for a trial? Do you have metric like that you track for yourself?
I mean, there are metrics. I have set everything in place, but I made a point that because I'm a one person company, right? It doesn't make sense for me to allocate so much of time to track every single thing until until level 0. So what I do is what I track, because it's essentially, I think it's goal based. So for me also, when I'm building Superblog, the goal was to travel the world and then build this passion project and see where it goes once I hit 100k ARR, right? So then you can think of like raising $1 million and hiring a team and going the VC route, or maybe be bootstrap and follow playbooks of other bootstrap startups. So what I do track is I aim for equal distribution between direct traffic, SEO traffic, and social media. I track that. And if I see some falling metrics in socials, I try to push more content, and I make sure I post enough content on SEO side as well, through the blog or website, or tool based SEO, so build certain tools periodically, to keep my authority and ranking, keyword discoverability, and maintain that metrics.
Okay. No, I hear you. Fair enough.
Yeah, and two more metrics. Sorry. One is whether I'm growing constantly every month or not, and I try to reduce the churn as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, churn can be a pain, especially in the early stage startups, because they, a lot of friends and people that I speak to, people that I've spoken with about, controlling churn, they always mention the churn is a problem of mis-selling sometimes, misfits, and also the stage that you target the customer at. So the bigger the client, the lesser the churn. That's kind of a fact there also. But you need people then. You need conversions happening through phone calls or a demo, whatever that need be. Let's jump into the SEO funnel for someone who's just starting out today. Let's assume that we have a new company being formed and this is a one person launching this, and maybe there are a couple of more friends joining him soon, and they want to start with a blog. So what are the primary things that you would recommend so that they kind of figure out a really large traffic volume and are able to capture those leads? And now it's a different question, how do they handle mid funnel, bottom of the funnel, whether there are demos or not? But let's just talk about capturing the top of the funnel traffic. What is the playbook according to you? Like a single person, give it to me like you would give it to a college student, doesn't know much about SEO.
Okay.
Zero knowledge about SEO. Because I'll tell you why I'm asking that. A lot of people watching this would have their blog set up, but I like to go to first principles and basics and details of how things are set up, because I've found often the big hacks, the big improvements come by noticing smaller tweaks that you set up in the wrong way or you did not know anything about. So let's go.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I'll just first tell the biggest mistake I made. So even though, supposedly I have so much of knowledge, one mistake I thought probably it could be due to procrastination or overestimating or anything. People tend to start their SEO or content journey from day one, okay? But I think it should be start at least from day minus 60, okay? That means at least 2 months before
I've
they
heard
even
that
launch
one.
the product.
Yeah. True.
So that's the first basic, anybody should follow that. Like whatever you want to start writing and targeting your content, do it even at least 2 months before you launch the product. Okay. So that you'll have that cushion once you launch. So that's number one. And number two, even before you think what to write, look at your product and I don't want to use the jargon, keyword clusters, topic clusters, and all that. Just see what would your potential customers search for. They don't know your product, so they will only search for something that would be solved by your product. So find those keywords using any of these tools, and you have to categorize on those topics. I'll tell about them, how to attack them, and start publishing content, at least 2 blog posts per week. So that would give you decent enough traffic to start with. This is how you would do. And then how do you pick on content that you want, right? I can assume that you'll have a fairly new domain. Like essentially all the domains have something called domain rating DR. Essentially would be at 0 or 1 if you did something, even before you launch. So for a new domains, it is incredibly difficult to target high competitive keywords. So every keyword has a keyword search volume and keyword difficulty, right? Like how many people are searching for this and how difficult it is to rank for that. Meaning, if there is another existing brand or other property domain that is already getting a lot of traffic from this particular keyword, there is no reason for Google or any other engines, to direct the traffic towards you. So this is how I would do it. Until you build up your domain authority, domain ranking, start with low volume, low difficulty keywords, and then go for high volume, low difficulty keywords. Then start with high difficulty keywords and high volumes. That's how you need to climb up the ladder.
First 2 months, low volume, low difficulty, right? I mean, just stick to that. Or would you recommend longer, like 3-4 months, you stick with that? How long would the duration for the first sprint, let's say, would be?
Good question. I won't here tell based on hunch or, experience and all that. There's an equation, like everybody knows this. This is how I would go about targeting, right? See, even before I tell this, one small disclaimer is, if you write extremely high quality content, you can beat existing articles, okay? But that is an outlier scenario. Ideally, you would want to be in the bell curve, which is proven to work, okay? How you pick keywords basically is, let us assume your domain authority is 10 and the keyword that you are trying to target and rank for is 15, okay? So now the difference is 15 minus 10, it is 5. Okay. Always make sure that difference delta is less than 10. That's how you should go about targeting. Okay. And it's an evolving strategy, as you can see. Keep checking your DRDA like once a week and see how you are getting the traffic, and then you adjust your targeting.
Sure. So what you're saying is that the difficulty level, I mean, say that equation again for we build these cheat sheets out of the session. So we're going to do that, for all the listeners here, they can actually download it from the link. And, my take here is that you're mentioning write these pieces, follow the formula to kind of choose the keywords. 2 pieces is what you're recommending they publish every kind of week. But now, obviously, there are other considerations like how can they optimize and make sure that this will come to the top of the first page, because I've also heard the quote that, if you want to bury a dead body, bury it on the second page of Google, right? And now there is another beast in town, which is Perplexity and all the AI engines that are doing what Google used to do. So I think this question is a mixed question for both. We have done the keyword research. We will publish twice a week. I'm not a content writer. Let's say we have a founder who's not a content writer, and most of the founders are not usually with that, muscle. Give us a hack. Let's say we found a good keyword. How do we write the content piece? Like, how do we write the blog? Like, I think there are multiple implications here. Would you recommend that all the H1, H2 title, images, referencing of those, do we just use a third-party tool like a SEMrush to write that and get it checked, or a Jasper to write it and get it checked? And I agree that we write it in a human voice. So we're not using AI. Maybe AI is our research partner.
Yeah.
Is that good enough to get onto the first page if I'm using a tool like this? Have you seen that happen? I want to hear about.
So very complex question. Okay. So I'll try to summarize and simplify it as much as possible, because ranking depends on multiple factors. Obviously, first factor is content quality. Okay. And then your authority, then even the speed of the page that, serves this content. And then you will not believe, like, even the design plays a big role, right? Like because the more readable the page is, the more time the visitor is going to spend on that. And time spent on page is a very strong signal for engines, to understand that this is a great piece of content.
Wow.
Right?
So a hack there could be add videos on the page, because then you're increasing time. And is it okay to refer YouTube? Because I know, and I've seen this, when you embed YouTube videos on pages, the page speed goes like incredibly bad, right? I mean, it's just like, it just takes a big hit.
Yeah, there are multiple solutions. Say, for example, take Superblog. Even if you embed a YouTube video, your speed doesn't take a hit, because I follow a certain technique. And not trying to push Superblog, even if you use WordPress or any other tools, there are other plugins or, like things that you can use to basically counter that.
Sure.
And it's not just that, right? And there are other metrics like, like Google Core Web Vitals, Lighthouse scores, everything that matters. You need to squeeze that last drop of juice, to make sure you rank well. And my suggestion is, there are certain low hanging fruits, you can literally go and nail each of them. Like, you can just get all of them, get that done. And then you can take, say, for example, you're telling, right, like H1, H2, H3s and all that, internal linking, images in the article. So if you use a tool like Superblog, when you start writing your content, Superblog suggests you what to do. It gives a checklist. Hey, did you put 2 H2s? Did you put 2 H3s? You are not adding an image. And then there's something called internal linking among your own property, right? So Superblog does that. Other tools also does that. But, in essence, there are this huge checklist that you need to do to beat this. But I would like to tell one small hack also here, right? Like, how do you beat that top? I mean, like, there's no more first page, because, you have this engines and chat engines, and it's just top 5 now. You need to be in those sources. There is no more X and Y axis, like top to bottom, and there is no page 1 to 10 and all that. So it's just a small list. You need to be there. The best approach is to search for your keywords and see what the existing content is like. Okay. See, content quality is very subjective. It depends. It's as good as the person you put in charge, the judge. Okay. Number 1, beat the quality of those 10 or 5 articles that are ranking already. Number 2, Google generally does this. You can look at the word count as well. Just don't do some random paragraphs to increase your word count, to add more information. And third,
So it should be bigger? It should be longer?
It should be longer or around the same length as the ranking articles, right? If they're writing a very detailed, in-depth article, and if you write a small, like 400 word,
Yeah,
500 word
I get
article,
it.
you won't rank, right? So you need to look at the comparison. And there is one more interesting thing, even in Google or Perplexity, right? When you search for something, they show you people are also asking, right? That's literally engines are giving you data on how to write an article. Make all those questions as H2s, right? Your article is H1, so H2s. That's how you rank.
Whoa, that's awesome. But I'll ask another question related to what I just asked. Do you think Jasper or SEMrush, I don't know if you've tried these tools, and they promise that they're going to write in a way that is not AI written. Have you seen any example when an article written by these platforms or an AI tool has ranked in the top?
Yes, I did see articles published with completely written by AI getting ranked and tagged also. And I made a recent post also. Right now, Google, essentially, Google has this quality checkers, quality raters, okay, on payroll. I'm pretty sure ChatGPT or Perplexity has this data cleaning, I would say, or there's a term I forgot. Not labeling, but basically quality check, QC, right? More and more methods are employed, these days to check that. Even though you see a spike, definitely it'll be penalized in the algorithm updates.
Okay, okay. So your suggestion is don't use those tools. You need a good checklist, is what I hear.
Yeah.
You need to complete the checklist, which you, I think, wonderfully summarized. I think brilliant suggestions there. And once we have done that, we can be sure that it would figure out somewhere. Is there anything else or completely separate that you would suggest people to do if they were doing GEO? Is it the same playbook?
Not exactly. See, right now, everything is speculation. Okay. It's just that because there is no official guidelines from any of these products. Okay. So whatever we are talking right now, is it if I talk something, we just need to analyze, is it more probable? That's how I would look at. Say, for example, ChatGPT or, Perplexity, they try to come to your website and see the content quality and parse and all that. Okay. But we know for a fact that the AI crawlers understand markdown files very well. Okay. So just like how we usually have robots.txt and sitemap.xml, I propose something called llms.txt like way back, and then people started even Andre Karpathy wrote about that. Okay, he was head of AI at Tesla self-driving, and so I thought, okay, fine, I'll capitalize on this tweet, and I immediately built a feature in Superblog where all your blog posts are converted into markdown format and placed strategically so that this AI crawlers will read that files, that links to that files, and it's not typical HTML tags and all that. It's a properly formatted markdown which can be easily understood by AI crawlers. So for GEO, you should do that.
Okay. Okay. So you're saying no separate playbook for now. If you're writing good content, following all these suggestions, I think we should be able to kind of.
Yeah, making sure the AI crawlers understand and get the context more, and also they look for the trust signals, just like SEO crawlers and algorithms, right? So far, that's the way.
See, I would change a bit of gear here and ask some interesting questions that I know founders dread and love. Content writing used to be a domain where you had separate people, dedicated people working in those areas, right? Now, suddenly, there is a shift. Almost everything's being taken over or being done by engineers. You are an engineer, and you mentioned that you write your content. The list that you just gave me, the playbook that we just discussed. My question is, when a founder is hiring for that content writer, he decides that I need one more guy to help me on this journey. Let's just hire someone who's going to write content and, build this engine and do all of that. Would you look for an engineer? Would you look for a literature guy? What's that profile?
Actually, I have a very interesting insight on this. Okay. It's not changing now recently. No, it's been there always has been that meme. Okay. For example, I'll tell you, right now, whoever are watching this podcast, right, just open Google and Google anything related to tax And most probably in top 5 results, you'll get this India tax startup. They get 95% of their leads from search engine, search only. Okay. And they've been for more than 10 years now, I think. Okay. You know what? Who they hired to write those articles? Accountants, company secretaries, tax specialists. Because you can't hire a literature writer, to write about tax articles, right? So if they want to rank, they have to beat every single article that's there on the page one. So they did, and it's working well. And they pay huge. They hire them like a tax consultants only, and then they make them write articles. And the same thing for engineers also, right? So if you are actually writing about a product, say something like Prisma or browser stack or Lambda testing, if you look at their articles, they're extremely technical, but dumbed down, for the reading purposes. They are not API specs docs, they are blogs. So they make engineers, write those things, or people who are well at technical writing. So it's that balance, if you ask me, in this context.
No, I think fair answer. Now let me just also get to the next stage. Let's say you have an accounting team writing content for a company like tax, advice that you mentioned about. If that's happening, would you expect in the new world of lesser people, more power to companies, that accountant who's writing the content also learns about H1, H2, images, videos, all the entire checklist of making sure right from the keyword search to the end article being figured on the search engine? Would you expect that guy to deliver?
It's then right now, I would say that shift is like full stack engineer, right? So earlier it was independent things.
Agreed.
Now full stack developer with DevOps, right? So there's one person. In an ideal world, yes, they have to evolve, but I think there are tools for that, right? Like right now, these roles are separated. You have a keyword strategy person, coming in and just focusing on that, what to target. And then you have a content strategy person, like just identifying based on the data given by
in the larger companies. I mean, in the startups, wherever you go, I mean, that's where the flavor of startups kind of becomes really interesting, is because you have people doing multiple roles, wearing multiple hats across the globe, not just in any specific part of the world. So I think you're right, using tools possibly and combining these powers. But I agree with you that it's all evolving to be a full stack. Content has to wear with AI all the hats that, helps him kind of handle all of this. I have a question here about keywords.
Mm-hmm.
If I am trying to target global markets, or let's say somebody says, I want to focus on GCC and North America. Now, SEO, if they want to figure out in GEO and SEO, would you suggest any different approach? Or if we generally just start following the suggestions you did, I'm going to get figured out in global traffic? How does that work? How does my strategy change?
So basically, one layer is whatever I just said, okay? But if you're looking at international markets, there is another unexplored layer, like localization. That's a very good, strategy. Like even I have my own clients doing the same thing, right? So you have the same content, but convert that into different languages, tailored to that particular region and geos. Follow URL sanity, all that things. You can basically do that.
Okay. So you're saying don't host a separate blog, or it could even be a separate blog, and we just go ahead and kind of localize it for the audiences. Maybe backlinking with the local players or local authority based domains would also help. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. See, backlinking is a different game in itself, but yeah, that also plays a role. But before we jump onto backlinks, right? Like if you're talking about content, yes, same blog, subdirectory with slugs cater to internationalization, and then put your localized content there, translated content.
Interesting. So you have separate slugs, maybe same blog, different directory, as in, let's say my blog is called, I mean, you have, let's say, a Starbucks blog coming for Middle East, which is like, how do you learn to make good coffee? And they call it a coffee blog. So coffee blog.starbucks.com is, let's say, their usual blog. Would you now recommend them to have coffee blog Afghanistan, coffee blog Qatar? How would you suggest?
No. That's actually, it's a very debated thing on the internet. subdomain versus subdirectory. Like you have
I
both
know,
sides.
I know. I've been shifted from a subdomain to a subdirectory
Subdirectory.
on WordPress because people
Yeah.
were like, and I'd asked HubSpot guys, why don't you have a directory based approach? Why only
Awesome.
subdomain? And they said, like we've never done this. I mean, this is how it is. But we realized almost everybody was suggesting. I think, including you, possibly. I asked this in one of the forums where you
Yes.
also
Yes.
commented that this is how it is. But yeah, what's your take? Like, how do we put an end to this debate
See,
forever?
anybody, they need to use subdomain, say, if they want to separate the properties completely. Okay. Recently, HubSpot took a penalty in Google's algorithm update, by the way. So, because of different, like multiple reasons, but I would, if I am building a product blog, okay, B2B product blog, I would use a subdirectory. For example, nourish.com/blog, where all
Yeah,
my
yeah.
English or my default content language, will
Oh,
reside. Okay.
okay, okay.
And then blog slash, yes, for like Spanish,
I get
right?
it. No, I get that. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So
And
that
then
that solves it.
sure. Yeah. And then you need to make sure canonical URLs and then the metadata that you need to give, you need to make sure all this vanity check is done, because if you're publishing same content in different URLs and all, that's again like, a negative factor. So you need to make sure the structure is set up correctly, then you are good to go.
Okay, okay. And when you're saying all the meta structure and everything's set up correctly, and the question comes here again, is there a tool that could just solve it? Let's say people were using Superblog, they don't need to hire a technical person, they'll be able to do it
Yes.
right away, right? I mean,
Yeah.
a tool like that could just help
Yeah.
them. Yeah,
Technically,
so
with
here is.
Superblog, you don't need to do anything. So you just focus on content, and all these things are behind the curtain.
Okay, okay. No, this is fantastic. I want to go back now to the conversation around other principles to make it figure out. As a single person founder, a content writing person who's basically just doing all of it by himself using all the tools. What about backlinking? Isn't backlinking like a really hard sales job where you're just requesting 1,000 people a month, please backlink, I'll backlink. What do you say?
It's a true. It's a very difficult job, and getting backlinks is also an art. Trying from other people and all that. So there's nothing to sugarcoat that. It's a very hard thing. But also, I would say you can rank without backlinks. But you have to make sure all the other areas are optimized for the maximum. But I think with GEO, backlinks are going to play even bigger role, right? Otherwise, how would the AI crawlers know that this is a trusted content?
Wow, that's a great insight. Now, think about this. I've come across people who have outsourced just the backlinking bit on a per article basis to Fiverr. There are freelancers or Fivers who would say, $50, I'm going to get you 20 backlinks, 30 backlinks for this article, and that's the only thing they do. And they guarantee authority, they guarantee, let's say relevance, context. Do you think something like that could be good? Because I'm still playing by the game, single founder or not too many people in the team, right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you asked this question, because I wrote about this also on my LinkedIn and Twitter. Okay. Many founders get scammed in this approach. Okay. See, in an ideal world, you pay somebody X amount of money and they get you good quality backlinks. Okay. But what happens in the game is we cannot go and check every single backlink, because you'll be getting, as a founder, you'll be seeing a lot of reports, and let's be honest, this will be one of the lowest priority things that for you to go and check. So what happens is they'll keep sending you reports month on week, like, hey, your backlinks are increasing and all that, but they don't know all these are like some low quality cheap backlinks. I can go on talk about how they essentially farm these links, but I wouldn't ideally go for that. Like, I think on Fiverr right now, if you open it, you can see like for $10, you might get 100 backlinks. But I can guarantee you that those things will create negative impact rather than the positive push that you're hoping for.
Wow. So what's the way to get around the backlinking machine without hiring tons of people?
So, I mean, you should have one person for sure. Or if you want to do it yourself also, it's fine. Be in a community, a community of founders. I'm talking about the initial stages, okay? Exchange among yourselves. Also, it's a big problem that the big players don't want backlinks from the loader DR people, because that will hit their article, so their domain. So yeah, it's a balance. You need to slowly go step by step in together with other players, reach out to them in different channels. But there is another hack that I usually do. I'm happy to reveal that hack. Target big players with keywords. Okay. So one example I can give you without technical jargon is pick a big player. Okay. Say for example, pick a big startup name or something and try to write alternatives for them. Okay. List out this. Okay. And now you'll have that player reach out to you for sure, like to include the link if that article is ranking. Okay. So then you can just ask them, hey, why don't you throw a backlink at me? Right. So that's inbound way of generating backlink. So you can repeat this process.
Yeah, that's a great insight, and it's a good hack. I think would help people. Yeah, I mean the amount of work keeps stacking up for the solo founder. So I am seeing that you kind of also suggested that hire someone to do this, and this could be an outside agency, I believe, and someone who's kind of supporting you from the outside. Fantastic. So I would go on to a very different question, which is being asked to me as well. So me and my wife, we've been co-founders in my
Lovely.
startup, in Nourish, and we had this question come up to us a lot of times from investors, and they'll go and ask this. This has been asked so many times. Isn't it a very risky team? Because if you guys separate, the entire company dies. It's a funny question, and when I this is an interesting anecdote. I told one of these guys that, what, we've been married for more than 15 years now. And he said, so what? Bill Gates was married for 29 years. How do you come back from that, right? There's no good answer to that. But as an individual solo founder, you're going to get, for a product, you have to fight this battle as well. It's not just, your co-founder battle, but you have to prove to people or give an answer to a question. What if something happens to you one day, or if you're not well, you're a single guy. What happens to the product then? How do you tackle that question?
It's a very good question. So I thought of this like from the day one, basically. Okay. So that's what I would ask if I'm choosing a product for my company, right? So I made Superblog in such a way that the product itself answers for that. Even today, like from day one, right? When the product is launched, people can anytime download all their data with one click and move away to other platform. Okay. And I myself, I wrote text article. I made a video tutorial showing them how to move away from Superblog, not to move into Superblog. So any day anything happens, you can just literally take like half an hour of your time to move out of Superblog completely at any point of time, no lock-in. That created so much of trust for my new early customers.
Yeah.
Second, there are checks and balances in place. I mean, it's a very logical thing to do. If something happens to me, and if I die, like what's to do, right? So I planned in such a way that the whole thing becomes open source. If people want to go and tweak it themselves. And I already talked about migration, this thing. And third, which I'm going to build, okay, the next feature is, if something like that happens, people can click a button and their entire Superblog will go live in a different server of their choosing. That's the thing I want to build. It's just to give them choice and that comfort, mental comfort.
No, fair. I think these are great answers, and I know it's a very tough question that a solo founder would get quite often. So if you were opting for a product or vouching for a product, and this is a very tough question, I'm telling you, you can say no if you don't want to answer it, but let's say you had a second best product that you would recommend to people. It could be WordPress, right? I mean, I give you an open field for that. Which one is it going to be?
So if it's a tough question, actually.
I told you.
Considering multiple factors, right? If people want, they could actually choose ghost.org, like ghost.org platform.
Okay.
It's open source, incredibly beautiful, and you wouldn't be wrong if you choose that.
Wow. No, so generous of you to suggest something open source, and love it. And my head of technology, my CTO here, Abhimanyu, is always after blog. You have to host it on WordPress, and every time I challenge that, he's shown me he shows me the best blogs on the internet. He's like, WordPress, almost everything's kind of hosted on WordPress. But I'm pretty sure what you're building, it makes so much sense because WordPress is so much work. I completely agree with you. Like it's just so many pieces. It's like you have to build the entire Lego blocks, and even then it's not guaranteed it's going to work. Hosting and light sale, and it is costly as well. I mean, I would happily pay what you are charging and kind of host it there. I think we've covered a lot of ground, and it's been just superb. You've opened the book of the SEO optimization setup. How do we go about it? And I kind of loved it. And
Thank you.
for me also, there's been so much of learning, and I think we're going to implement a lot of stuff that you just suggested. But it has been fantastic to have this conversation with you. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much, Naresh. Kinder, sorry, your product is coming to my mind. Thank you
No,
so much, Kinder.
it's a good compliment. Your personality kind of merges with the product, and
Yeah.
I mean, people just do that. It's a great thing, right? I take it as a compliment always.
Thank you. And I love the way you questioned me like in different topics. Also, some of them were like very difficult, but thanks for this.
No, my pleasure, man. My pleasure.